What up, nerds? My name is Leslie Smith. Welcome to the Nerdy Narrative, where today I'm going to do a tag that I saw over on Jesse the Reader's channel. I will have their version of the tag linked in the description box down below. If you have not watched Jesse the Reader, he has a very entertaining channel. Recently, I was going through some backlog videos and I saw the phone app's book tag, and I thought, that looks like a really fun tag. So that's the one I'm going to be doing here today. Today's video sponsor is author James Flynn, which was inspired by his upcoming new release, A Bunch of Fives. A Bunch of Fives is a collection that is going to smack you straight in the face with a mighty handful of powerful tales of fiction. This sucker packs a punch with 5 hard-hitting stories, all of which will leave you stunned, dizzy, and in a delirious stupor. Within these knuckle pages, you'll find a professional hitman taking on more than he bargained for, a strange creature roaming a Vietnamese island, a nymphomaniac in the midst of a breakdown, and much more. The release date for A Bunch of Fives is June 1st, 2023. There is a pre-order link that is already up for you. While you're waiting for this one to come out, if you would like to check out author James Flynn, I would highly recommend reading another collection that he has out called The Hand That Pulls You Under, Tales of Absurdity and Lunacy. It was a fantastic collection that had a lot of genre blending between science fiction, fantasy, and horror. I will have both collections linked in the description box down below for you to check out. So thank you very much to author James Flynn for sponsoring today's video, inspired by his new collection of short stories release, A Bunch of Fives. Now let's get into the phone apps book tag. This is a tag with 12 prompts that are based on apps you can find on your phone. The first prompt is Contacts app. For this prompt, you scroll to a random contact in your phone and recommend that person a book. I actually used my Contacts app. And I just scrolled and tapped, and it landed on Alan Walker, who just so happens to be a booktuber. I know straight away the book that I would recommend to Alan, and that would be An Alchemy of Mask and Mirrors by Curtis Craddock. If you loved the steampunk vibes and the airships that we encountered in the books of Babel by Josiah Bancroft, this series is going to be a hit for you. Prompt number 2 is the camera app. This prompt is to share the last picture you saved to your phone of a book. This is hilarious. So it counts because it's the cover of a book, but I actually screenshotted a tweet because I wanted to remember that this was happening so I could actually read the book because I have it sitting on my shelf. I saved this tweet because this is a book that's going to get adapted to a film and Nicolas Cage is going to star in it. Let me see if I can block the light so y'all can see that. The book is called High Fire. I am not sure how to pronounce the author's name. I believe this is a YA sort of science fiction fantasy comedy. I have the book. I don't remember what it's about. I thought it was interesting at the time it came out, so I picked up a copy, but I haven't read it yet. So whenever I see tweets where things are getting adapted, I will snap a picture because I know I'm in my photo album all the time. So I'll remember to make a note when I come upstairs to read this book. Prompt number 3. Notes app. What's the last book that had you writing down all of your thoughts as you read it? I actually do that for all my books. I keep a reading journal. I just went to the end of where the blank pages start, flipped back, and the latest book that I read that had me writing down notes is The Last Smile in Sunder City by Luke Arnold. Prompt number 4. Mail app. What was the last book you received by mail? And that would actually be, I still have it sitting over here, Redwood and Wildfire by Adrian Hairston. I haven't read anything by this author just yet. I do have another one of their books on my shelf, Master of Poisons. Heard nothing but wonderful things about it. Angela from Literature Science Alliance read it and enjoyed it, if my memory serves correctly. So I do plan to get to that one soon. I might try to sneak it in before I start this book. But my friend Evie from the channel, She Was Only Evie, sent this book to me. I pre-ordered it for her, I believe. And so she sent me a copy so we could buddy read it because the sequel to this one is coming out soon. So we're going to buddy read this one, I believe, in August and follow up with its sequel in September. You know, I actually forgot what this one was even about. Redwood, an African-American woman, and Aiden, a Seminole Irishman, journey from Georgia to Chicago, from haunted swampland to a city of the future. They are gifted performers and hoodoo conjurers struggling to call up the wondrous world they imagine, not just on stage and screen, but on city streets in front of parlors and wounded hearts. Oh, I love stories about hoodoo. The power of hoodoo is the power of the community that believes in its capacities to heal. Living in a system stacked against them, Redwood and Aiden's power and talent are torment and joy. Their search for a place to be who they want to be is an exhilarating, painful, magical adventure. I am so excited for this one now. Prompt number 5, Google Maps. Name a book or series where you have no idea the direction it's heading in. This prompt actually stumped me for a while. I finally landed on Gideon the Ninth. I love this book, but when I read it the first time, I spent a lot of it lost. The majority of it lost, but there were some really interesting characters that I loved, and I was invested in those characters, and I kept going. And I eventually caught up to what was happening. Even so, I still had at least 1 or 2 rereads before I felt like I've really caught up to the front of the class. Now, as far as to where it could possibly go from here is anybody's guess. I've never read the second book because I keep just rereading Gideon the Ninth, and I love it so much that I stopped there. So maybe I'll reread it, actually follow up with Hera the Ninth, so that I can read Nona the Ninth, which should be coming out very, very soon. The most popular way this one's been marketed is lesbians in space, and while that statement is accurate, it doesn't give enough credit to the story. And really, we only have space mentioned a couple of times. I completely forget that this is happening in space because the story, we actually just kind of go to one planet where all of these people from the different houses, the adepts, they're coming with their cavaliers to basically compete against one another to level up and become lictors. And while it starts out as puzzles and games, someone gets murdered, and it turns more into a murder mystery. So you might be thinking, a murder mystery. Okay, if you've read one, you've read them all. Well, have you ever read a murder mystery where half of the people involved are necromancers? I didn't think so. Prompt number 6, the weather app. Name a book that feels like sunshine. When I think of sunshine, I think of happiness, and the one book that has brought me the most happiness, it gave me so much joy and laughter that it just turned it into healing properties, because I was going through a really difficult time when I read this book, and so the laughter and the joy was just perfectly timed to just completely turn things around for me. And that book is Stringers by Chris Panettiere. Our main character here is named Ben, and he was born with the knowledge of vintage watches and the reproductive techniques of insects. Take note, I said he was born with this knowledge. He did not learn it. So they thought at first, oh, we have a child genius. It turned out not to be the case because his genius was limited to those 2 topics. And it just held him up because he kept trying to figure out, where he got this knowledge from, and then eventually it morphed into just trying to find somebody else who was like him. You're probably thinking, that sounds crazy. And it is, but it is so funny. I have laughed so hard reading this book. It's such a joy. And it's just one of those books that's going to be on my shelves forever as an end-all cure-all for what ails me as far as reading. Prompt number 7 is the Google Translate app. Name a book that was originally published in a different language. And I actually have one here that I read recently by Hilda Hilst, With My Dog Eyes. This is actually the first time this one has ever been translated into English. Prompt number 8 is the Uber app. Name a book or series where the storyline took you on a ride. I'm gonna go with Gardens of the Moon by Steven Erikson, which is book 1 in the Malazan series. This one, I like to lovingly tell people, it starts you in the middle of a marathon. You are thrown into the action. You literally have no idea what's going on. In fact, I didn't know what was going on for the majority of the book, but it all came together in the end. It was perfection. We got an ending. This could be a standalone and I would be happy. In fact, I kind of turned it into one because I haven't continued the series. Yet, it's going to happen. I am definitely going to continue that series. Prompt number 9, Spotify app. Name a book that you would recommend on audio. I'm gonna go with The Blade itself. It's the first book in the First Law trilogy by Joe Abercrombie. The audiobook narrator is Stephen Pacey, and Stephen Pacey is amazing. In fact, he is the audiobook narrator who finally gave me the patience to learn how to use an audiobook. I tried it several times. I was like, this is not for me. I couldn't stay focused on the narrator. My mind would wander. Next thing I know, I've listened to 3 chapters and remember none of it. But when I read this series, I was on a time crunch to get the first book read to be a part of a live show. And to do that, I had to utilize the audiobook. And he was amazing because he was able to bring the world and the characters to life for me. I was patient. I listened. Of course, I realized I had to slow it down. I listened at like 1.25 speed. I kept hearing all of these other booktubers and reviewers talking about listening to stuff at 2 times speed or greater, and that's what I was trying to do, and I just could not do that out the gate. If I wanted to slowly start speeding it up, I could, but I don't like it when it alters the sound of the person's voice and they start sounding like a chipmunk. That's just not an enjoyable time for me. And now I try to get an audiobook for every single book I read, because if I'm not able to continue reading, like I need to clean, cook, walk the dogs, I can keep going with my book by having my audiobook. And then sometimes I want to sit down to read physically and my brain is just racing and I just can't get focused. So then I immersion read. So now I am addicted to audiobooks. Prompt number 10, calendar app. What's an upcoming book release that you're dying to get your hands on? That is going to be Don't Fear the Reaper by Stephen Graham Jones. It's the follow-up to My Heart is a Chainsaw, second book in the trilogy. I am so excited. We were originally told we were going to get that book this summer. They pushed it to February 2023. I've requested it on NetGalley. NetGalley is letting my request rot just like they did with My Heart is a Chainsaw. So I put on my big girl panties and I wrote a really nice email to the publisher and asked for a physical ARC. I'm still waiting. It could show up any day. I will die if it does, which will completely derail whatever month CBR that happens in, because I want to reread My Heart is a Chainsaw before reading Don't Fear the Reaper. Prompt number 11, the clock app. What was the last book you read that had you losing track of time because it was so good? That's going to be An Alchemy of Mask and Mirrors by Curtis Craddock. You guys are going to hear me talk about this book a lot because I absolutely loved it. It's definitely up for Book of the Year against, so far, Empire of Silence by Christopher Rocchio. I thought about this book every minute that I was not able to read it. There was no audiobook for it, so I could only read physically. When I tell you guys that I worked as hard and fast as I could so I could get back to reading that book, that's exactly what happened. I was sitting up late trying to read the book. Of course, I was falling asleep. It was just amazing, which is hilarious because when I started it, I thought I wasn't going to like it and I was going to DNF it. But at the end of chapter 1, I was hooked. And the final prompt number 12, is Goodreads. What was the last book you gave 5 out of 5 stars to? And I'm going to just pop open my Goodreads here and see what that is. I do know I've read some books here that I need to write reviews for, and I haven't put them in Goodreads yet, but we're just going to count what's in here. Ha! That's funny. The first one that pops up that I've actually inputted into my Goodreads, I have sitting here because I need to do my written review, and that is S.A. Chakraborty's Empire of Gold, the 3rd book in the Devabah trilogy, and the only book in the trilogy I gave 5 stars to. It was perfection. It was perfection. I have 0 complaints about this book. That means it is 5 stars. My enjoyment level through the roof. I didn't even get everything that I wanted. I got some things, but the price that I had to pay to get those things was too high. If I had the choice, I wouldn't have had those things happen to get me some of what I wanted. If that makes sense, I don't know if that makes sense. I gave a book 5 stars even though it didn't turn out the way I wanted it to. It turned out exactly the way that it needed to. And I can't really give you any details because it's book 3. You need to read books 1 and 2. So if you haven't read the Devabah trilogy by S.A. Chakraborty, a Middle Eastern inspired fantasy, another series that I didn't think I was going to like when I read the first book because I thought it was going to go in a direction that I wasn't in the mood for or expecting at the time. There was a moment between 2 characters where they just kind of fell into a little bit of romance, and I was like, I'm not into insta love for one thing, and 2, I didn't think this was going to be a romance, but it was just that one moment. But by the time we hit book 3, I was ready for all the romance. And so that takes care of all of the prompts in the phone app's book tag. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. I thought it was a lot of fun. Jessie had a thoroughly entertaining version of this tag, which is where I got the idea from. Again, I have their version of it linked down below for you to check that out. If you are a content creator and you thought this sounded fun and you want to film your own version, please do so. Tag me and let me know so I can watch your video. I'm not gonna go tagging anybody because I'm not sure who all has done this one. I literally saw the video yesterday and I said, ooh, I want to do that. And so I did, and here we are. And with that, I will bid you adieu. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.